And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines in simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day. Quite the energy level.
Yeah, I'm off to a lively start this morning.
Did you already have your morning coffee?
I haven't, interestingly enough.
Interesting. I'll
Yeah,
take it.
I think I don't know how long this liveliness will last, but before I need my caffeine intake, but we'll see.
But for now, I'll take the win. Let's get started. We have a lot of grounds to cover as always. This is our first pick of the day.
KIDD.
So senior defense officials from South Korea and the United States have agreed on the need for close cooperation in response to new types of provocations from North Korea. This came during the 25th Korea-U.S. Integrated Defense Dialogue. Run us through what was discussed, Adam.
Right, so the meeting was led by Cho Chang-nae, Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy here, and Anka Lee, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia. They discussed key issues related to the alliance. Both sides focused on three main objectives. One, enhancing extended deterrence against the North. Two, modernizing the military alliance through technological cooperation. And three, expanding security ties with other like-minded nations in the region. They reaffirmed their shared goal of the complete denuclearization of North Korea. The U.S. also reiterated its commitment to defending South Korea using both nuclear and conventional forces. Concerns were raised over North Korea's ongoing trash balloon launches and other provocations near the northern limit line and northwestern islands. Both sides agreed that close cooperation is needed to handle North Korea's what they called North Korea's gray zone provocations. Now, these include tactics like cyber attacks that don't cross the line into direct military conflict. And of course, most recently, those trash-filled balloons as well. Now, they also discussed the risks of North Korea's military cooperation with Russia. They stressed the importance of ensuring that all countries, including China and Russia, fully comply with UN resolutions. Also, in the field of technology, both countries agreed to expand cooperation in areas like AI and next-generation communications. They also discussed holding a defense technology conference starting next year. That was proposed by South Korea. The allies also reviewed progress on the transfer of wartime operational control, or OPCON, and agreed to proceed systematically and carefully. They also emphasized the importance of continued security cooperation between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Now, following these discussions, both countries will hold the 56th Security Consultative Meeting in Washington later this year, with both defense ministers in attendance.
All right, now turning to our second keyword this morning, a vast wave of Israeli airstrikes on Monday, targeting parts of the country where Hezbollah holds sway, killed hundreds of people. This is our second keyword of the day.
Leave conflict.
So as clashes between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon intensify, the South Korean government has once again urged its citizens in the area to leave. Authorities are also preparing evacuation plans in case of a potential full-scale war. What's the latest, Adam?
Right, so the foreign ministry revealed that around 140 South Koreans are actually currently in Lebanon and about 480 are in Israel. Now, no Korean casualties have been reported so far. First Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yoon said the government is closely monitoring the situation and preparing for possible escalation with evacuation plans in mind if necessary. Now, the foreign ministry also reiterated that citizens should leave while flights are still available, as airports could close depending on the situation. Now, the military reported that South Korea's Dongmyeong unit stationed in Lebanon has not been directly affected by the airstrikes. However, as a precaution, the unit has raised its alert level and suspended all operations outside the base. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said the Israeli military is well aware of the exact locations of UN forces, so the possibility of them being targeted is actually low. Now, President Yoon also addressed the situation in the Middle East during a cabinet meeting, ordering a thorough review of the safety of Korean businesses, troops, and citizens abroad.
All right. Monday was actually the country's deadliest day since its 15-year civil war, which ended back in 1990. As we mentioned in the headlines, hundreds have lost their lives, including children. So Israel is continuing its airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, forcing, again, thousands to evacuate. Can we get a closer look at the latest on the conflict?
Yeah, so basically more airstrikes. Israel targeted rocket launchers, command centers, and weapons depots in eastern and southern Lebanon, as well as launching airstrikes in Beirut. It claimed it had used 2,000 rounds of ammunition to hit about 1,500 Hezbollah targets across Lebanon. Hezbollah responded by firing dozens of rockets at Israeli military targets. Israel claimed it had used, Hezbollah. The Israeli military, reported that more than 100 projectiles were fired from Lebanon into northern Israel throughout the day. Some, they said, were intercepted, while others landed in open areas. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to maintain the offensive against Hezbollah. So, of course, that means that possibly the conflict will continue with more airstrikes going back and forth between Israel and Hezbollah. So, of course, this is, again, sparking concerns of a full regional war breaking out.
Meanwhile, the UN General Assembly has convened in the state of New York. Notably, President of the United States Joe Biden gave a speech urging a ceasefire deal in Gaza, trying to prevent that wider regional conflict. Our third keyword of the day.
UN General Assembly.
So world leaders have gathered in New York for the 79th UN General Assembly. This year's general debate, as you can imagine, started with a serious tone due to not just the conflict in the Middle East, but several, including Ukraine, what's happening in Sudan. So focus is on these conflicts. What's the latest?
Right, so the debate will continue until the 30th, with the leaders speaking for about 15 minutes each. The main focus, as you said, is the conflict in the Middle East, the Russia-Ukraine war, and the civil war in Sudan, all of which have caused severe humanitarian crises. Other key issues include climate change and reforms within the UN and international organizations. Now, in his opening speech, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres criticized governments and groups that violate international law, noting that more entities now act with impunity. He stressed the need for accountability, especially with the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, and warned that Lebanon is on the brink of disaster. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the first speaker, pointed out the numerous conflicts worldwide and criticized the lack of strong UN mechanisms to prevent or punish those responsible. Now, Brazil traditionally opens the debate as it volunteered for the first speaking slot when no other country actually wanted it. US President Joe Biden, in his last UN General Assembly speech for his term, reminded leaders that serving the people is more important than holding power. He condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine and promised ongoing support for Kyiv. He also urged a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and warned that a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah would harm everyone. Interestingly, he made no reference to North Korea, stark contrast from his previous addresses to the UN General Assembly. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas are set to speak on Thursday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address the assembly on Wednesday. That's after attending a UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will speak on Saturday. Of course, he's in place of Vladimir Putin, who has actually not attended at the General Assembly since 2015. South Korea will be represented by Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol, who will deliver a speech on Friday. He'll also join Security Council discussions and a ministerial meeting on peace building. North Korea will be represented by its UN ambassador Kim Sung, who is set to speak on the 30th.
All right, let's move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Yoon meets PPP.
So in the South Korean political arena, President Yoon hosted a dinner meeting with the leadership of the People Power Party, but they failed to resolve sensitive issues, namely, of course, the medical reform. PPP chief Han Dong-un's request for a private meeting with the president did not materialize either, raising concerns that tensions between the government and the ruling party might continue for the time being. What's the latest, Adam?
Right, so the dinner lasted about 90 minutes. The event proceeded with around 30 attendees, including presidential aides, which led some to criticize it as merely a group dinner rather than a meaningful discussion. Now, one attendee mentioned that there was no opportunity to discuss key issues, calling the dinner unproductive or fruitless. Yoon reportedly shared details about his recent trip to the Czech Republic. No discussions took place on sensitive issues such as medical reform and controversies surrounding the First Lady Kim Gun-hee. Some pundits say that the top office may have felt that a private meeting on such sensitive issues could give the impression that the president and party leader were trying to resolve major conflicts behind closed doors. Now, there were several delays as well leading up to the dinner. Initially scheduled for the end of September, it was postponed until after Chuseok. Before the rescheduled dinner, Yoon had a separate meeting with some pro-Yoon faction members in the ruling party. That caused friction between party factions as well. Reports about Han requesting a private meeting further fueled a public dispute between the pro-Yoon and pro-Han factions. Now, neither side has provided a clear explanation for the lack of a private meeting. Now, although Han was once seen as one of Yoon's close confidants from their days as prosecutors, their relationship recently has soured, due mostly to differences over how to handle the First Lady's acceptance of a luxury handbag and other sensitive issues as well. Han Dong-won saying that the First Lady should offer an apology. Of course, not received that well from the president. Now, given these complications, it is uncertain whether a one-on-one meeting between Yoon and Han will happen anytime soon. Han reportedly requested another private meeting during the dinner, but received no response. Now, if tensions continue to rise without resolution, it, of course, could negatively impact Yoon's administration, especially since both the government and the ruling party are seeing declining approval ratings. Lack of communication between the president and the party leader could also create an image of disconnection. For Han, whose position within the party is already a bit unstable at the moment, continued tension with the president could weaken his influence further.
All right. It seems just days in to this new leadership, PPP is offering sort of a rocky start. We'll wait and see. That is perhaps the nature of the political arena.
Yes.
All right. Our final keyword of the day.
Pay revision.
So the central and local governments are considering allowing Filipino caregivers to choose between a weekly or monthly pay system and extend their overall permitted stay from 7 months to a maximum 3 years. This comes after 2 Filipino domestic workers reportedly started working in Korea but left their jobs without prior notice and then radio silence.
Yeah, so these 2 workers, of course, have gone AWOL, and of course that has prompted some concerns about possible pay and the
Working
conditions,
conditions. Right.
working conditions and the length of their contracts as well. Officials from the Labour Ministry and Seoul City government held an emergency meeting to discuss ways to improve working conditions. The meeting also included some workers as well to get their input. Now, the city government is considering offering workers the choice between a weekly or monthly payment system to accommodate individual preferences. However, some of the attendees at the meeting expressed that a monthly salary would actually be more convenient for their budgeting needs. Of course, there are some people who would prefer a monthly payment rather than a weekly payment. Now, in addition, the city is weighing the possibility of offering additional allowances as well to caregivers responsible for families with multiple children. It's also considering extending the workers' employment period from the current 7 months to a maximum of 3 years. The workers also highlighted difficulties with their working conditions, citing issues such as curfews at their accommodations, which is set at 10 p.m. at the moment. They want it extended to about midnight, and they're also complaining about long commutes to work as well. Now, Seoul City officials plan to discuss extending the curfew and providing more information about rest areas where domestic workers can take breaks between jobs. As for the 2 workers who left without notice, officials have attempted to contact them but have not located them yet, and they're still unreachable at the moment.
All right, we'll wait and see how this pilot program does turn out. I mean, it is a pilot to, set the record straight. And the objective, one of the objectives is to work out any kinks if there are. So this might just be the troubling process. Thank you so much, Adam.
You're very welcome. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.